most people with his origin story become villains. If you look at people like Thanos, if you look at people like Gore, the God Slayer, if you look at people like, almost every villain has a tragic origin story, and that pushed them into being a villain.
He is loyal. He values honor. He's integral. He does what he says he's going to do.
As I went through these and I was going through that very low time in my life, I found hope and I found perseverance and I found something to believe in.
And to me, that was holy crap. He truly has that level of integrity within his values, and he would not bend his honor.
It just hit me. I'm sitting here with the woman I married as she sits on top of a Marvel-clad blanket.
Fitting.
And we're having a conversation about Marvel, and I never in a million years would have thought that would happen. Welcome to the podcast, guys. Today we're freeballing it. We're going to talk about whatever the fuck we want, and you're free to listen. You're free not to listen. This is America. You are free.
Sovereign beings.
So I think we should start off with just talking about, we talked about how into Marvel we are now. Started out, I was just into Marvel and we weren't so sure you were going to be into it. But now that you've watched the MCU chronologically, with the exception of a couple shitty movies, we'll skip the poopy ones. And now we've watched, we've dabbled in a couple of shows. We've watched the full season of Punisher. And I was super surprised to hear that Punisher is now one of your...
Arguably one of my favorites. Yeah, he's right up there with Cap.
I was going to say, did he surpass Captain America?
He might have. But I think it's because for me, my relationship with a character is dependent upon the amount of time I spend with them.
Oh, I'd say that's true for anybody. Yeah. And see, this is why I'm so adamant about people, understanding, or at least having a baseline understanding of the comics. I think that really, not everybody's a comic reader, but for me, it gave me so much background, context, supplemental information on people's character development, their origin story, etc. So I went into the MCU with that. And then if I saw someone new as I was watching the movies, I'd go back and I'd read their comics. And so Doctor Strange is a great example of that. His comics are legendary.
Love Doctor Strange.
Yeah, Moon Knight. And so all these people, some of the more vague characters that you see in the movies, I go back and read their comics and I'd understand more about them. Mm-hmm. And you also understand a lot more in the movies with that context. But that being said, why Punisher? Why do you like Punisher?
Okay, so I like who he is as a man. That's probably the easiest way to put it. He is loyal. He values honor. He's integral. He does what he says he's going to do. He's willing to sacrifice himself for other people, for their protection, I think, and a lot of people, I guess the perception is that he's different than Daredevil because Daredevil doesn't kill people. Punisher doesn't go out there and just kill random people. He kills people that are trying to kill him, and he has a reason. And I guess we all have reasons, but the reasons that he has to do what he does come from a place of very deep pain. His whole family was killed, and his best friend was in on it. There's just so many crazy things that have happened within that series, and his composure, the fact that he doesn't give in, he does not compromise anything. He doesn't bend to throw other people under the bus. He will put himself literally in the line of fire to save other people. And I think that speaks volumes about his character. I brought up a few moments that I thought were very potent for me. One of them being when he's in that room with Billy, his best friend, who's going to kill him. And he's like, look at us. I have all of this stuff. And what do you have? You have nothing and you're going to die. And he's like, no, you don't have everything. You lost your honor. And to me, that was holy crap. He truly has that level of integrity within his values, and he would not bend his honor, even if it meant using other people to acquire money or assets, getting in bed with the wrong people to acquire status or financial security, which all are things that Billy has done. I think his name is Billy. I hope I'm saying
his friend.
Yeah. Billy Russo. Yeah. And so that dynamic was really cool for me. And then the moment where his friend, Micro, we'll call him. But what's his real name?
I forget his real name.
Okay, yeah, Micro. Obviously, if you haven't seen this, just synopsis is Punisher gets hunted down by Micro. Micro wants Punisher's help to get his family back. The same people that that thought Punisher was dead and killed his family were also after him, and they killed him. He didn't actually die, but he did have to hide because he didn't have a way out, and he was trying to expose the people that killed him so that he could get back with his family. And he's a tech guy, so he had set up cameras in his family's house, and he was gone for a year. For a year, they thought he had been dead. And so Punisher figures this out. Whenever his wife needs something, he will basically go and support her, right? And so That's not necessarily how they met, but I'm really skipping this whole story. Either way, Punisher goes over to see his wife for something, and she's obviously a widower. She's not doing very well. She misses her husband a lot, obviously raising 2 kids. One of her children is struggling a ton with his anger and feeling like he isn't fitting in anywhere and just really struggling. And so Punisher goes over there, and they have a moment where his wife kisses him. And he like stops and he's like, whoa, whoa, like, you know, whatever. He goes back to see his friend Micro, and Micro's like freaking out about it. And he's like, I need you to get this through your head. The only woman that I want is my wife. And in that moment, I was like, that is a man that truly has honor, but also loyalty, like for many, many things. His wife was killed. Like he will never, ever experience his wife again yet. The way he loved her, his commitment to her, their marriage, like even without her presence, he would never know. Obviously, she's dead. He would never do anything to dishonor her. And I think that is so rare that it's commendable. And I really appreciated that about his character. But yeah, I loved watching him. I thought the guy that played him was phenomenal.
John Bernthal.
Like it felt so real. You could see, like my dad was a Marine. So like I maybe have biases for praise around Marines, but I loved that he was a Marine. I thought he played that character very well. From the mannerisms to his tone to the way he spoke, and even under pressure, even when he was being, tortured, he didn't break. Like there were just so many things that I thought most men would crumble underneath this, whether it's temptation, opportunity, self-serving things that he could have done. He doesn't move. He's an unmovable character. And while, yes, I'm not an advocate for violence in any arena ever, I cannot say that if that had happened to me, I would not want revenge, because like the whole mission that he's on, this whole group of people basically ran an unapproved operation, right, in Afghanistan. And he was a part of it as a soldier. So he didn't know that this wasn't a public information. It wasn't approved information. It was a covert operation that he was a part of. And so by being a part of it, he obviously had information on underground secrets, and that's why they killed his family. He was collateral damage, let's say. And so when they killed his family, the only way for him to have any type of justice around that would be to expose the people that hurt the people that he loved, remove them from his life, literally. Now, I don't think his idea of justice was handing them into the government. It was indeed vengeance. But in the end, he does cooperate, yet also validates the fact that he needs to do it his own way too. And so like there's just many, many layers to him. He's not somebody who doesn't give a shit about anybody. He very much cares, but he cares about the people that he cares about. And he would do anything for them. I truly believe that. He would die for them, literally, but also had the will to live for them when it probably would have been easier for him to die, especially towards the end where he's being tortured and you see those flashbacks of like him and his wife, and she's asking him to come home. And he wants to go home, but there's unfinished business where he is to protect other people.
He said, I am home.
Yeah. And so that, you know, and I think some of that too is like it paints the picture of so many men who come out of the service struggle to get back to normal life, to repopulate themselves within normal society, to find where they stand, what they're supposed to do. That's really hard for many people. If you don't know, you know, ex-military or people who've been in the military, then you may not ever have this thought. But I know for my dad, it was very hard. I know it was hard for you. And so while I don't have that lived experience, that transition can be really, really difficult for people. And some people don't know how else to live. There's no mission. There's no, you know, thing where it tunes out every other thing that we focus on in society, because you have one target, one mission, one shot, and a team of people that you depend on with your whole life, right? The brotherhood. That was what was painful about Billy Russo kind of turning on him. But I digress. I loved the storyline. I loved his character. I loved the character development. I loved the fact that the way he is painted and is not at all who he is as a character, if you pay attention to the character. So yeah, there's many reasons I enjoyed it, but those are quite a few.
Well, I appreciate that in-depth analysis. A few things came up for me while you're talking. One, it just hit me. I'm sitting here with the woman I married as she sits on top of a Marvel-clad blanket.
Fitting.
And we're having a conversation about Marvel. And I never in a million years would have thought that would happen. And so just deeply grateful for that. Life rips. Secondly, one thing that came up is you're basically speaking to why I love Marvel, and I think why a lot of people love Marvel. People who aren't in the know or know the lore, or comic heads, or just kind of see the surface level MCU. They just see superheroes. They're like, oh, superhero movies, blah blah blah, and they think all superheroes are the same, etc. That's fine. The reason why I literally have these characters tattooed on my body forever is one, because I fell in love with Marvel while I was in probably one of the lowest points of my life, and I found myself, as I watched them, identifying with a lot of the characters, and as I researched the characters and learned their backstory, I found parts of myself in each character that I fell in love with. And as I went in, as I really dove deep into it, and there were some characters that I knew since childhood, like the X-Men I always knew of, Captain America I had some knowledge of, Hulk, some of the more popular ones. But as an adult, as I went through these and I was going through that very low time in my life, I found hope, and I found perseverance, and I found something to believe in. And a lot of these characters were admittedly versions that I wanted to be in as far as their values and their honor, kind of some of the things you spoke of just now. And so I think what I'm really stoked about is now you doing that with me, because I hadn't seen the Punisher show yet. I had not seen it, and I got to watch it with you. It's one of the first things we watched. One of the few things we've watched Marvel-wise where we both experienced it for the first time, because I'd seen most of the movies before you watched them with me again. But what I think is profoundly wonderful about Marvel is they've done such a wonderful job, especially in comparison to DC, which that's a whole other thing. But Marvel specifically has done such a great job of creating characters who obviously have, superpowers. Some of them are more boots on the ground types, like Daredevil, your Punishers, or, your Deadpools. Those aren't like godly or supernatural, but they have a humanness to them. And even some of the more heavy hitters like Thor, he lost his whole freaking family, and you start to see that take a toll on his psyche as the MCU saga progresses. He gets more downtrodden and almost in a depressed state towards the end. He lost his mother. He lost his brother several times. He lost his father. He had to kill his own sister. It's everybody he cared about was taken from him. And a lot of them have that storyline. But what's different about Punisher is most people with his origin story become villains. If you look at people like Thanos, if you look at people like Gore, the God Slayer, if you look at people almost every villain has a tragic origin story, and that pushed them into being a villain. Whereas Punisher, although his methods may not be for everybody, he is fucking brutal. He doesn't just get revenge on people. He doesn't just kill them. He makes them suffer, and then he kills them. So he's got that unique trait where it's like you can always expect a brutal finishing scene with Punisher, gory the whole extent. But he's in what's called an anti-hero, meaning basically the difference between a hero and an anti-hero is he kills, right? Most heroes don't kill people. He actually kills, and he has his own moral compass, which you kind of spoke to. And so I found that specifically about Punisher, he had two routes he could have gone. He could have easily become a villain, but he became an anti-hero. And then you have with Daredevil and Punisher, as you alluded to, the conflicting value system, where it's like Daredevil apprehends criminals and lets the justice system do what he believes is just. Whereas Punisher is the judge, the executioner, the jury, everything. He makes that decision for them. And so that's where they kind of get into a conflict in the Daredevil series, which we'll watch soon. But yeah, and then last thing is I find it interesting to see who you identify with. That's why I always kind of ask you after we watch a movie, what do you think? What do you think about this person? What do you think now? And obviously it kind of ebbed and flowed as the MCU progressed. I thought eventually you'd like Loki. You still hate him. That's okay. Yeah, we still haven't seen the show Loki yet. I think you might like him after that. But that being said, I did not foresee you liking Punisher, but after you describing why you like him, it makes sense to me. It's like your dad was a Marine. You really do have a strong, I don't know if it's admiration or just appreciation for men who are very solid in their values no matter what. Even if those values aren't, accepted or subscribed to by the majority of people, as long as they're convicted in those values and they live them every single day and don't waver, they don't budge, that's something that you really appreciate about men in general. And then, you gotta also, the guy's tough as shit, man. He takes a beating. It's not like guys like, Thor, where bullets bounce off of him, and, Iron Man, who's protected by a big suit. This dude takes damage. He takes it often, and he just keeps going. He keeps getting up. So that's what I appreciate about him as well. And that's what I also appreciate about Daredevil, which I'm excited for you to watch that too.
Well, one thing I want to say about Punisher specifically too is he's not a superhuman. He doesn't have, like Cap, for example, Cap before he was injected with the super soldier serum. He was just this young, small, fragile boy who had his values were right there, but his visual aesthetic didn't fit the hero he wanted to be, the soldier he wanted to be, right? And even when he gained all of that power, and they do tell you it kind of just makes you more of who you are, he didn't move on that. And the difference between, I would say, a good comparison for me is like the difference between Punisher and Cap. Cap always has faith that people can change. Punisher will punish you for what you've done, right? It's like you, and what I love about him too is he doesn't demonize the whole. So he could have gone after the whole FBI. He could have gone after everybody in the CIA, right? Assuming that they all played a part in this whole thing where his family was killed. But instead, he's like, who is responsible?
Who pulled the trigger?
Who was a part, or who made the call?
Who made the call? Who pulled the lever? Yeah.
Yeah, and so he punishes people who are responsible for wrongdoing, which he does so by, again, his military background. He's incredible with guns. Like watching him, again, that actor did such a good job. Just like his entire character is like clean and pristine.
John is awesome.
Yeah, phenomenally done. I really enjoyed watching the whole thing. But again, the difference being like things that I admire in men and women. Like if you are unmoved by your values, despite feedback, criticism, trends, whatever it might be, it's not cool to be that or stand on that or believe in that or whatever, and you are not swayed by external pressure, I value that in a person because it tells me they know who they are. And if they know who they are, they're convicted in those things and they're not moving despite whatever chaos might come. I admire that in so many ways. But yeah, he's the most human of them all. And again, I told you, I was like, he heals insanely quick. He's been shot. He got an arrow stuck in him. He had like his lung punctured. He is cut everywhere, like stabbed bullets, like, and he still shakes it off, gets up and goes back at it. Like it's just, to me, insane, impossible maybe. But like that character, the will to win or the will to follow through on the things that you honor or the things that you've said you would do or where your loyalty lies, like that is so rare in I think the modern world in general, but specifically we could talk men, women, and personal character, but that is one of the things that makes characters stand out to me.
Yeah, it's really well filmed too. The action scenes are pristine. That's the thing where a lot of shows and movies fall short is well choreographed action scenes. I have a high appreciation when a show or movie does that well. Sometimes they overdo it with the CGI or the camera's cutting too quickly and you can't see the actual combat going on. There's scenes where he's clearing out a building with a shotgun. And it like I get a little bit, I have to like catch myself because it feels very real and it looks very real. And he does it so swiftly. And then like the way the violence is portrayed, it's very, very accurate. And so I have a high level of appreciation for that. I think it was a good break from, again, the really pretty cinematic universe. I mean, I know they have to toe the line with violence in these movies because of Disney's influence. They want it to be somewhat family friendly. And so, and my friend Derek and I have talked about this, but like if Captain America with all of his strength were to actually punch someone with that strength, they would their chest would cave in. They would explode into a pink mist, but obviously they can't portray that on screen. So you only punch somebody and they'll fly into a wall and, that's that. Same thing with someone like, Wanda or Doctor Strange, anybody else, Spider-Man. Spider-Man's the strongest pound for pound superhero in Marvel. And he basically pulls his punches. A lot of people don't know that, but it's kind of revealed in the third one where he's fighting Goblin there at the end. But when he doesn't pull his punches, it can literally kill people in one hit. So it's, Punisher's a good break from that. It's gritty. It's obviously very violent, but not overly done. I don't think they do a good job of portraying how brutal he is with his punishing acts. But it's not, gory like a horror movie. It's very real and gritty. And so that I appreciate that. That's one thing I appreciate about DC is the grittiness. When you look at, the Batman and the storyline with Joker, and you look at, a lot of those more gritty, and especially in the comics, the DC comics are way more gritty, but then you have some Marvel characters, your Moon Knights, your Deadpools, your Punishers, and your Daredevils, who are more violent, gritty, and it's just more real. So for me, it's a good break, and I'm really excited to see how they bring Punisher into the MCU in the next Spider-Man and potentially Doomsday. So I'm purposely muting all the Marvel accounts so I don't see spoilers, but I digress. So yeah, that's been cool watching Punisher. We also